What's up, everybody? This is the Trailblazer and Envoy survival kit. Now, a while back I made a video where I talked about carrying a spare ignition switch. And someone had mentioned, yo, you should do a video just for the spare parts you carry. Well, here we are. So I'm going to go run through these. These are basically the top 5 offenders. So number 1 here, we have the ignition switch. That's the GM part number of it. Now this ignition switch can fail without warning. When this thing fails, it can leave you stranded. The truck won't start, won't run. You can get a tow bill, you can have a diagnostic charge, and of course you're going to have to pay for the replacement, and most places will bump up the price of the ignition switch. So this is a real money saver to not only to have, but to be able to do yourself. Now, I've never showed this switch being replaced because I've never had one that failed here. If and when that time comes, y'all see how we do it, you know what I mean? Number 2 on our list. Well, this goes by several different names. Some call it the Headlamp driver module, others call it the low beam relay. This guy's problem is he can fail without warning, and that can make your low beams not work. Now, in another video, we talked about swapping the fan clutch relay and the low beam relay, but in like 2008 or something, they stopped using the fan clutch relay. They went back to a mechanical fan clutch. So it'd be a good idea to have one of these, before it fails. One thing I want to tell you about this motherfucker right here. This is the GM part number on this thing. You know what I'm saying? There have been several reports of the truck catching on fire, and they all had something in common. They had an aftermarket low beam relay. Number 3, an ignition coil. Your i6 Trailblazer has 6 of these, 1 for each cylinder. These things can fail without warning. Now, when these coils do flat out fail, what'll happen is either the check engine light will just come on and stay on, or the check engine light will start flashing. When the check engine light starts flashing, your catalytic converter is on a timer basically. It will cook, and it will cost you. Now, in this case, what I did was I just went on eBay and bought some used coils. Now, it's good to test your used coils first. All you're doing is just taking out a coil and putting one in, and that way you know you've got a good spare. It would suck to go through all this only to find out that the used coil that you got didn't work. For a good money saver, I mean, you can get 6 used ones for the price of 1 new one, so something to keep in mind. Number 4, the camshaft position sensor. Now, I talked about this in another video for testing and replacing it. So this thing will fail without warning. What can happen is the truck can start stalling at low speeds, and my beef with this thing is that if this thing fucks up, you can't use cruise control because it sets a trouble code. And if I'm on the road on a long trip, I'm using cruise control. That's why this fucking thing's on the list, you know what I'm saying? Number 5, this is the trans shift lever bushing. So what this is this is a plastic bushing that's taped to a piece of envelope. So I don't know if you guys can see that well. Try to give you guys a good view of this. Your gear shifter has a cable that runs from the shifter. It goes through the body of the truck and connects to the transmission. Now, I kind of crawled underneath and kind of got a picture. I'll throw it up right now, give you guys an idea of where this thing is. The reason that this thing is on this list is because this thing is plastic and brittle, and it can break without warning. If it breaks, you can no longer shift the truck manually with the shifter. So this thing, can leave you stranded. And I know some people will say, well, you can kind of improvise and kind of rig it up to shift. That's fine. They don't sell this bushing by itself. This is part of the whole shift, the shifter cable assembly. And replacing that thing requires taking a lot of shit apart. I think the console's got to come out, the driver's seat, some of the carpet's got to be peeled back, and you can remove the old cable and fish the new one in. But someone started making just the little bushing, which is, I think it's like $10. So $10 for a bushing, or God knows how many $100 to replace the whole the whole cable. So I'm gonna put up a link to that because I think this is a really, really, really good thing to have. You know what I mean? We have an honorable mention here for the Mega Fuse. Now, don't mind mine's kind of in beat up shape. I've had this thing for a long time now. This thing will pop due to incorrect jump starting procedures. I talked about this before. Motherfuckers don't know what they're doing on these trucks, and they just start hooking the jumper cables up to the studs on the fuse box and pop this thing. So while this thing might not leave you stranded, it's going to wipe out a lot of body electronics, power windows, power locks, different odds and ends. So it's better to have one now, you know what I'm saying, than later. And it's not like it's super rare. You can get these at a lot of stores. Now this doesn't really count as like part of a survival kit. It's always a good idea to have something that can read your check engine light codes. This thing was like 30 bucks. Just pulls and reads and erases trouble codes. This is the same thing, but it uses an Android phone to talk to the computer and read the check engine light and the codes. And I did a whole video about Trailblazer check engine light, so if you need more information on that, that's where to find it. While we're talking about the little survival kit, you know what I mean, it's good to have all this stuff with you. You're also going to need a couple tools, you know, whatever tools you kind of need to, you know, replace these. Obviously something like the low beam relay, you're not going to need any tools for it but your fingers. But to get stuff like the ignition switch or the coil or cam sensor or this bushing, you're going to need some assorted tools with you. Now when I go on a long trip, I usually bring my whole big tool bag so I can replace basically anything, but I do have a little kit that I use. Now I haven't done a video on this yet, but I carry 2 small things of vice grips. And rather than have to come back and edit something or redo this video, I'm going to show them now. Not really going to explain what they're for, but you will see in the future what they're for. All they are, little tiny vice grips. They're you know, like a little 4 or 5 inch length, and they have a very good purpose. I mean, I carry other stuff with me, flashlight, gloves, some tire repair tools, a little toolkit like this. Ain't gotta be nothing crazy, just something that you can take apart different stuff and replace stuff. Using just these like primitive tools right here, pretty much replace any of the stuff you see, with the exception of this super bushing right here. Now, along with the mega fuse I talked about, I do carry an assortment of fuses that this truck does have. I wouldn't say that any of this stuff is like the common failures of these trucks, but these are the failures that kind of happen, boom, without warning. And the last thing you want to do is be like 200 miles away from home and one of these things just craps out, because, like I said, some of these things can leave you stranded. You get a tow bill, you get a diagnostic charge, it's a man so doesn't know what he's doing, they're going to mark up the parts too. This isn't like a front wheel bearing that, you know, you develop a noise and then the noise gets worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. No. These things just flat out die and it's over, you know what I'm saying? I roll with it. That's all I can say. I roll with this stuff. You think I woke up one day and said, yeah, you know what, I think I'm just going to buy some extra parts. No. This is from being on the forums for like 7 years or whatever, you know what I'm saying? If 100 people say, oh, I just went to Walmart's and I got out and I bought my shit and I got back in and I came in and the truck wouldn't start and the ignition switch, when you keep seeing that a bunch of times, then it's like, okay, wait a minute, maybe I should roll with one too. With the holiday season coming up, people going on long trips, you know what I mean? This might be something good to think about. It might save your bacon, you know what I'm saying? That concludes the Trailblazer Survival Guide. I hope you all find this useful. I'll try to throw up some links, especially for that trans shifter bushing, you know what I'm saying? I hope this can save you guys, you know, some money and some hassle, you know, for those long road trips, you know what I mean? So thanks for watching. If you like what you see, subscribe to my shit. Don't forget about these. You will be seeing these guys again real soon. I'll take the word of, just say 50 people that said, fuck man, this switch broke, I had to get a tow, you know what I'm saying, I was stranded, I had to get a hotel room, I had to fucking pay a diagnostic charge, and then they charged me $120 for a switch that cost $60, you know what I mean? This is all about saving money. So for someone to come along and say, it's not necessarily true, it's like, whoosh, you know what I'm saying?